First one came to Carrollton, settled out on Keller Spring, now which is Hedge Lane, Hedge Park. My great-great-grandfather, which is Rufus Hedge and Betty Hedge. They came from Clarksville, Texas, to Carrollton. They actually came from Tennessee at the beginning, then they came to Clarksville and ended up in Carrollton, Texas in the 1800s, about the 1850s, out on Keller Spring area back then. Now, he was a preacher, and his wife was a teacher. Then they had Walter Hedge, and they had Annie Hedge Rainwater, and Rufus Hedge, Roberta Hedge. And Rufus Hedge had property at Whitlock and 35. Whitlock and 35, Old Denton, used to be Old Denton 77 Road right there. He owned 200 some acres in that property location down there. Great-grandfather, they owned a lot of land out there. We owned, I guess, at least 200 acres out there. They farmed and sold their vegetables and corn, and they would take, I understand, up to Hebron. Used to be a mill up there. They could sell stuff, products, take them downtown Dallas. And that was actually, they was in business. That's where business was back in them days. They meat, kill cows, hogs, and all of that.
How many kids did they have?
They had 5.
And then one of them, we were talking about that.
Yeah, which is Walter Hedge. He owned a lot of property at, like I said, down on Broadway, in the location down there.
What did he do? What was his occupation?
His occupation, same thing. He had a lot of cotton and a lot of corn, and chickens, and they would take it to the market and sell it as well. They was really in business. That's what business was back then. And he built the first colored school here for the colored people to go to school. Walter Hedge did, and then he had farms, and a lot of people worked for him in the community. I got a chance to meet even a lot of white folks in here worked for him down on his farm and stuff, and most of the people in the community did back then. No, he was not a teacher. No, somebody else. But now when he went to school though, they went to Booker T. Washington. They rode a train, in a train to downtown Dallas at Booker T. Washington, down on Roof Street down there. And now you hear about dark, and everybody's so excited about dark. My grandfather rode that same track all the way to downtown Dallas, but it's called the inner city train to go to school. Because back in them days, you couldn't go to school. I mean, once you finished the grade school that they started, then they went to high school at Booker T. Washington in Dallas. My mother, Annie Hedge Rainwater. Yeah, he had 5. He had them 5.
And what'd they do?
Well, they about the same thing. It came along back in them days. There was jobs you had, just field job, corn, cotton, raise vegetables and sell them. And that was a way of life then, especially if you want to be a business for yourself. You don't work for nobody else. As I go back and can do a track back in the history, most of my people own their own property and had their own businesses from years and years.
They've been entrepreneurs.
Right. Then Annie Hedge Rainwater, she married my father, which is Washer Rainwater, Charles Wash Rainwater. Charles Wash Rainwater, his family came from Tennessee. They came here in the 1800s, which is George Rainwater. George Rainwater stayed down in the west end of town. Down by, we had a black cemetery down there we keep up now that most of the tombstones were back in the 1800s. Down at Lunar Road and Beltline area. That's where George Rainwater stayed. Then in the 1800s, Carrollton, late 1800s, Carrollton flooded. And back in 1909, it flooded again. And Georgia lost a lot of property and a lot of land, and they did a lot of wood selling and stuff like that. So then from that, he decided he gonna leave Carrollton. So he rented a boxcar and put his family on half of it, and put some cows and pigs and things on the other half of the boxcar. And caught the train ended up on to Slayton, out in Slayton, Texas, by Lubbock out there. And when it got flooded out the second time in Carrollton. My father's mother, now she came from Tennessee, but she came from the Bush side. And Bush came for Carew. Carew used to be a Carew plantation right there at 75 and Northwest Highway, behind the mall. If you go back there now, you see some of them old buildings still left, that brick buildings left back there. And they came up with the family of Carew, and they was actually Jeff Bush. He was free, I mean, kind of a free type slave once he got here, but he still stayed there with them. And once they decided to move and got free, that's when he moved up to County and White Rock, Addison area. It wasn't too much storytelling in it, because life back when I was coming up was serious. You know, you didn't have a lot of, well, like in my time, you know, I'll be 70 in April, and I can remember time right here on Keller Spring that we didn't have lights. We had a coal a lamp carried around here at night. I can remember time wasn't no TV. We didn't have TVs. So it wasn't no lot of story. Everything life was really serious. And you ask people, say, why you didn't have pictures, or why you didn't have this and that? But back in them days, you didn't have all that go around, you know. So life was a really serious, and life was really serious. It wasn't a lot of time wasted, you know, because from that time it was social time. A lot of time was church. Saturday evening, somebody, families coming together in a community like that. That was most of your pleasure that you had, really enjoyed. But Walter Head, down at Sandy Lake Park now, Walter Head used to own Sandy Lake Park. It used to be Hedge Park. It used to be his park. And all the black people that come around, they just come to Hedge Park and were in for entertainment. Back in them days, they played baseball and rode horses and rodeos and things down there in that location. Yeah, he sold that some years ago, yeah. And it ended up being Sandy Lake, but a lot of people don't know that it was a black park at the beginning. And see, a lot of people don't know Keller Spring out here. Keller Spring is named after a black family. When I was a kid, we used to hook a horse up to the wagon and put iron barrels in the back of the wagon and go down to Preston and Keller Spring to get water, drinking water. And the Kellers was a black family, the Kellers. So you go down to the Kellers Spring and get water from them. And that's how sometimes we would go down there, it'd be with 20, 30 wagons ahead of you in line to get waters. That was the source of getting water around. From Dawson, Garland, Richardson, everybody came around. So you really got a chance to meet a lot of people, because sometimes you had 2 hours talking to people. And you get a chance to pull them, get your water. And you come all the way back from Preston and Keller Spring back to up here at Carrollton, and ever your drinking water you had. But when I was coming up in the 60s, there wasn't probably 400 families around here in Carrollton area. But to me, as I can remember good, a lot of this property was, over half of the property at least, was owned by black people. And black people don't know that, you know. Well, like my mom and dad, you know, they own their own property. My daddy farmed, and mom, you know, she just kind of stayed there at the house or did what she needed to do for, once they got to the school going, she would go down, like, you know, maybe go down to school, help teach, because we only had one teacher when I was coming up, first year in the school, the J.H. Bush School, which is the Cuddy School. They had moved it down at roughly Belline and 35, on the west side of 35. It was a black neighborhood down there, community. And the church down there, CME Church, that church was probably 130 years old now. And the little Cuddy School that I went to, we only had one teacher, which was Bernice Chapman. And sometimes people like my mother walk from out on Keller Spring 3 miles down there to work, help free, volunteer free, to teach kids and stuff, because she only had one teacher was getting paid, the rest of them helping the community. So she taught from the first grade all the way to the 8th grade. So it wasn't too much teaching going to the best she could. So she had to get volunteer from the community. Then from high school, you would go to Booker T, Washington, and they would bus us to Carrollton, bus us from here to downtown Booker T, Washington on the bus. And for some reason, in my days, not having a good understanding of real life, they would always give us the old bus. They were smoking, and when they get a new bus. And we would, some days we would get to school 2 o'clock in the evening, old bus. And sometimes the bus driver would say, well, y'all stay on the bus, go in and talk to the principal. And him and the principal talk for a while and bring us back, head back with the bus. We never go to school. In school, we got credit for coming to school that day. Yeah, so it was kind of like a joke because the old bus had a hole in it, and sometimes it got so cold, sometimes we'd be able to fall on the bus. Back then, and so cold on the bus driver wouldn't even say anything because he wanted to get warm too because the old bus didn't have no heat on it. Then sometimes we go up the hill, the old bus smoking. All the kids had to get off the bus because the mist was so bad that the boys would get behind the bus and push the bus up the hill. And once it gets to the top of the hill, we would, the girls get back on, we take off again. It don't even seem real. It seemed like it was a joke, a story that so I, my life, I guess I came at a good time to see a lot of the hard times, bad times. Youngest thing I can remember is we used to stay right here at Kettle Spring, and they stayed here at Josie, and right down the hill there. And it was a white family that stayed up the street. We had a big black family, a black community down here on Kettle Spring, all the way up down to Morris Lane. I mean, big families, just a lot of families and everything. And the white family, they were very friendly with us, come down on Sundays and everything, worked together. But what really hurt me, when school started, we were the same age. So the bus would pick up, we'd go to school the next day, and the bus could come by and pick her up, but I couldn't get on the bus. And for some of my sisters and brothers didn't bother, but that always bothered me. And I couldn't, figure that out, and I found out what was going on. It really hurt me because I always felt like I was somebody, just a thing in my heart. I didn't want to be like that, but I had to walk from out there 3 miles down to the colored school on the west side of the freeway and walk back. And we went down the railroad track, sometimes going across some crosses and stuff like that. It was scary. A train come, you had to get off to the side. Then back in them days, it was kind of a mean community to be in. A lot of white kids would catch you walking so far down the track and throw rocks at you or call you this and call you that. You had to run from them. And so it was kind of a mean time. Like when I was 6, 7 years old, back in them days, it wasn't too friendly. Like, and I would hear stories from some of the older people that they couldn't, you didn't walk across the square. You had to go around the square. And the guy was telling the story about it. He was telling that one day he's got enough of it. He put some bricks on one side and hid them, and put some bricks on the other side. He said, I'm going to go across there. So he went across there, and they got after him. He got them bricks and he hit them side of the head, and they went on. And from that point, he had no more problem out of them. So yeah, when you look at this stuff now, it don't seem real. It sounds like a joke. But anyway, back then from that time on, see, when I was a kid, a lot of times you went in the grocery store, you had to go in the back of the grocery store, right in Carrollton. We had to go in the back of the movie. To get a hamburger, we had to go in the back with the cooks back there to get a hamburger. Yeah, the 50s all the way to the 60s, see, up until the 60s. In the 60s, my mother, Annie Hedge Rainwater, she put a suit against the school district, and it came against the school district here in the city. And that was in 62. Then from 62, everything got to kind of, she won the case in 63. Then from that time, it got better and better because once the court started coming in, people started coming in. And the laws, things started coming in, and WCP started coming in. So it got to be some better. We didn't have to go in back to the movie. Didn't have to go in the back to the grocery store, the back grocery, stuff like that. And see, back when the integration started, we would meet down at St. John Baptist Church on Broadway. That church now would probably be close to 100 years old. And back then, and we had some white women would help my mother and the LCP, but they lived in Farmers Branch and they would come up and park their cars in the back of the church. They tell the husband they go and play cards or something, and they would put them back of the church, and they really helped us. I mean, you know, arrange and plan on how we're going to go about it. So myself and my cousin and I, we was just finished high school. I finished Booker T. Washington in '62. So in '63, Dallas wouldn't accept Carrollton no more. So when Dallas found out about the suit gonna come in, Booker T. Washington had black principals, so they didn't want to be involved. I guess, and somewhat, I guess they wanted to kind of help, to help them anyway. So they wouldn't accept the money. See, Carrollton would pay for us to go to school there. Now, sometime we got to school, Carrollton hadn't paid their bill, and the principal let us come in, they sent us back home if Carrollton hadn't paid them for us to come to school down there. So I'm just now, you go through this life, it seems like a joke, you know. But anyway, once they put the suit in, they had to get somebody to carry the kids to school. You got to get turned down before you can say, I'm going to sue you. But see, all the older black was afraid to do that because they lose their job. The one that didn't own their own business or something like that. So myself and my cousin, we were just finished. So we was kind of, you know, you still kind of angry at what's going on and wasn't afraid or whatever. So we would take the kids. We did take them up to the school, and they turned us down and wouldn't enroll them. Oh, my people was just good people. They was all my people just good people on both sides. Church-going people, hard-working people. Most of my people own their own. They didn't have to go to work for nobody. They owned their own property. Had, you know, I can preach. They had peaches and all the food they wanted, and farmed, sold stuff, and both sides of my family always have had. And I've been so blessed myself. I'm going on 70 years old, and I haven't worked over 10 years for nobody in public myself. I've been self-employed most all my life. Actually, what happened to me as a young man, I used to work right up here on Josie, you know, at McCamey's milk dairy, and they used to go there and milk cows for him, and he used to come and pick me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would take my clothes with me, and I would change my clothes, and I would help him milk his cows. Then he'd take me to school, the color school off of Beltline. And I would, sometime though, he'd pick me up in the evening about 3. Then sometime we have a good game going, a football game going, I would tell the kids, to tell them, I'm gone. I go in the corner and hide, because I want to finish the game up. Then he would...
Now, how old were you then?
I was, well, it was maybe 7, 8 years old, still going to grade school. But I was working in public around that time. So from that time, and a lot of time I would tell him I'm gone because I want to finish the game. Then I would walk on up there. But I mean, sometimes I would walk up there and he would, I get there and he would cuss me out because he drank the whole lot. Right here, Josie and McCamey. That's street up there now, right there, and right over here by Josie. But he would drink a whole lot. And a lot of time I come in, he kicked me in the butt with them boots, big old rubber boots. And then he would call me, he'd say, you know, your niggas always don't want to work and do this and do that. So his daughter was the same age I was. So she would cry, Daddy, don't do him like that. So anyway, I learned that I wanted to be boss. He taught me a lesson, and today I love him for it. Really, just got in my mind, I got to be boss because everybody kicking me all the time. And so I went to Dallas and Oak Cliff, started a business over there, and it was very successful. And from that, I opened a food place. I was at that running, and I opened another food place up. I bought the food place and had that going good over there. And then I bought another shop. I had 3 shops going, businesses going at the same time, and been very successful. Then I decided, I went into, I bought a pest control company. Then I decided I was going to come back to Carrollton and work out this way. Back in the community, so I could do some things that need to be done, and some things that wasn't done, and some things that I had left. Some unfinished business I wanted to take care of, the better of this community out here. So by me changing, I wanted to drive to Dallas all the time, or whatever, just be in this area all the time. Probably when about the 70s, I wasn't that long because I drove back and forth because I didn't want to stay. And my mother was still out here. This is my foundation out here. So I was very interested in trying to make a change out here in the community. So from that, I went into pest control business. So I've been in pest control business over 40-some years. So I've been involved in that. And I've been in a nonprofit organization, which I've been running, Christ Community Connection now, for now about 30 years, at least 30 years or so. And we gave a lot of scholarships away and seen a lot of different things to change in the school district, working with them along with the city. We've seen a lot of programs and a lot of open doors of a lot of deals. God has blessed me to be able to see a lot of doors open and send me through those first to get those open. I always had love to make a difference, to see a difference, and help those who couldn't help themselves. Because I was blessed to kind of have a gift that I found out a lot of people didn't have, you know. And back then, I become a license to a ministry in '78, and over from White Rock Chapel Church, pastor over there. And from that, I've been doing ministry in the service. I mean, in the community, serving the community. I did prison ministry over 20 years, traveled all over the state, and I was blessed to come in contact with a guy that said God have told him to use his airplane over in Addison to fly us all around the state. So we had the opportunity to fly from all around the country towns, Houston, everywhere else, and on his plane. And from that, I did a lot of work at Dallas Loose Sturks down there, a lot of ministry down there. And I ran into a guy in Denton County. In Denton County, they said they need somebody up there. So I moved from down there and left one of my friends down in Dallas and went to Denton County for, I think, at least over 10 or 12 years I did ministry in Denton County Jail up there for them up there, chaplain. Then from that, I taken sick, I ended up with a kidney problem. So I had to come out of the jails and ministry. So for the last 4 years, I had a transplant. I was on dialysis for over 8 years. And for the last 4 years, I've got a transplant. So I've been so blessed. We didn't have anybody, well, actually, my thing was to see white and black come together, try to become one. That's for my family and my mother. And even my mother put the suit in. It wasn't about for black, it was for everybody. So everybody could attend the schools together. And when you work together, it make you stronger, and the strength in you learn from each other. And that was my heart too. We can get together. And my thing was Lord, show me how can I get these white folks to understand that black people is okay, that we all can love each other, we all the same, we just got our colors just different. And it was just in my heart to make this see that happen in this community. So number one thing, I started going to the city and tried to get them to see we need to change, make changes, opportunity for everybody, and things like that. So we worked to so I told the city manager that open came up, so I said, let's get an Afro-American. So I always was telling when I go to City Hall a lot of times and get in little fights with them. Sometimes they have called the police on me and stuff like that. But back then, because I was kind of doing it the wrong way, I was really strong to want to make it happen all overnight. You can't make it happen overnight. You got to happen through love for it to stay. You can make it happen now, but it won't stay. But if it go through love, it'll stay. And God showed me that and showed me how to do that. So the first opening came for the city manager. I talked to the city manager about it. He said, well, you always call me prejudice, so if you find one and he qualified, we hire him. So I got a group of Afro-American men, the group, and we went out and we found one in Denton, Texas. And he came down from Denton, and he was the assistant city manager here for quite a while. Then he left, and I talked to him again. I said, let's keep this slot open for the minorities. So we found one. I had a cousin way out in Childress, West Texas out there. So he came in and went to work here. So the first city councilman I went to talk to a guy about running for city council. And he said, well, I don't know anything about it. I said, well, if you run, I know the people, I can get you on there. So we ran and got the first black city council on here. And then from that, I went to talk to another lady for the second black city council. So she ran, we got her on there. So it's kind of get those open. We've had, and I wanted to have a Black History program at the City Hall to show that we all coming together. But the mayor told me, no, you're not gonna come up here having no Black History program. So I felt that I was going to, I had prayed about this, and the Lord had told me to do this. I prayed about things before I moved. So anyway, we kind of got into it, but we ended up having the Black History program over at the City Hall. And they found it supported and everything for 3 or 4 years. Then come along, we had the Martin Luther King Parade. And from that, I mean, we had trouble with the Martin Luther King Parade. Wouldn't help us with that. So we just kept fighting forward and pushing forward. And now they've been having the last couple of years, so they've been having us supported. This is our 15th year in the Martin Luther King Parade. And it's the largest program in the community that you have more of a diverse group to come together and show love and march together and love together. That's the only thing we have in Carrollton, really, is bring everybody together in the community. Roofers and Betty Hedge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's when they came there in the 1800s. And that's the same property. That's where I was raised up at.
So was that the property where the park is?
Right there where the park is. Our house was right there where the park is. And that's where after he left passed the property down. And so my dad and my mother ended up buying it. And that's why we were raised up right there where the park is, right there. So we were raised up at. Now it's between Keller Spring and Keller Boulevard, but actually it's on Hedge Lane. The name of the park is Hedge Park, but that's where it sits right there.
So that was where.
And he owned land all the way across where Bush Freeway is from Keller Spring, right in there. And like I said, most of that community was all property. When I was a kid, owned by black. And Joseph Ranch bought some more of that property, but there was the Welleses owned that property. Well, then, like I said, she like the PTA. She ran PTA. She was working in the church to keep the church going, and like I said, go down and volunteer, help teach the kids but she didn't get paid for it, and stuff like that. That's kind of hard. Most of my people just had for life, and from that, once she saw my sister, and all of them had to go to Denton, Texas. Carrollton let them go, and that's when she decided to enough is enough and opportunity now. So that's when she put the suit in. They won the suit here in Carrollton. And from that, out on Keller Spring, there wasn't a church out there. We had to walk 3 miles to church. So out on Keller Spring, she saw an opportunity for young kids who wasn't going to school, so she started a church at Keller Springs and Hedge Lane right there. And now that church now is at Keller Spring and Midway, the largest Afro-American church in Carrollton. That she started that church. Mm-hmm. Yes, she was on a school named after her up here on Frankfort and Hedge Rainwater Elementary, named after her. Uh-huh. Yeah, as long as I can remember, she did some school and churches and the community. Yeah, she would take us along with her, whatever. And that's amazing. From 3 miles, I wasn't nowhere to go to. I mean, we walked back in them days. That's a way you get around, you know. And a lot of time. From that, we go to like to Louisville or go to Denton in our wagons, and that's amazing how it wasn't nothing to it. That's a way of life. We go to Dallas in our wagons, and it was just amazing about how life was back in them days, you know. I can remember picking cotton. That's the worst thing I always hated. It was picking cotton. I wasn't too good at that because you had to work all day long to get 100 pounds. And back in them days, you probably to get 100 pounds. I mean, $1, $100, $100, $150, $100, or something like that. And it may take me 2 days to get 100. So I wasn't my thing, cotton. Well, we plowed. I used to plow in the garden, make garden, and plow in the field, and with our horses and stuff. Then I had my little extra job. I would hook my horse up to a wagon and go from Hedge Lane, which is right here close to Joseph Lane. I go all the way up to Morse Lane and plow old lady's garden. I plow garden. She give me a nickel and some peaches, and I get my little wagon and my little plow and my horse and drag it all the way back down to my house. And that was nickel a lot of money back then. I could go down to the ice house and buy me soda pop and cookies or something. Yeah.
How old were you?
I started off probably doing that about 8 years old. I always had a little job going or some kind of way. I think about how to make money and pick up money different ways. I go over to Mr. So-and-so and I'll call somebody and work pick up some kind of way of making money always. It used to flood now in the black neighborhood down on the Beltline, that area. Used to be a colored where the school was at. Now a lot of times it flooded down there. And the kid, everybody down there had to get up. Police go down there and wake them up at night, and they had to get up and come up and stay up under the underpass at night. And a lot of times the next day we go down there, it'd be fish and stuff swimming all the way around the school. Water still got fish and stuff, don't flood out the river down there. So it used to flood back in the days. I can remember that myself. We had churches like we had St. John Baptist Church, was still on Broadway, and we had the Methodist Church, which is down on College, but they just 2 years ago they let it close down or something. They moved the congregation. But when I was a kid, we all used to go to the church. I was a Methodist, and my friend was a Baptist. So actually, what we would do is we would go one Sunday to the Baptist church, and next Sunday we'd go to the Methodist church. That's kind of where you shared in the whole community like that. And one thing I can remember so good, I was so blessed, and I'll never forget that. The white people from the Baptist church in Carrollton, First Baptist Church, used to come down and give us vacation Bible school. And it was so nice, and they would bring stuff we never could see, didn't have, and laugh and things. So I never forgot that. It was really a blessing for me to see that. But because when I went to school in Carrollton, all the books we had was old books. When I got a book, I had so many people that the whites are still living out. I know their names in the book when I got a new book. And it was already tore up. So, that's just that's where life was, But you just have to it wasn't, if you didn't know no better, it wasn't a problem till you just take and go on. Like I said, that's where life was, you just kept moving, but you used it to advantage. You can read that book. A lot of times we had 6 or 7 in one. We only had one book. You take it today, and somebody take it tomorrow. So that's kind of what you ran into. Yeah. You had to go in the back door when I was a young kid, like the Rainbow drugstores, and they had ice cream and stuff like that. You couldn't go in the front. The movie, you had to go in the back of the movie down there. It's still down there now, the old movie down there. You didn't go in the back, but you went in another location called the back. You'd go upstairs away from them. And the white kids, though, they was real nice, though. We had the white kids, they was nice, though, the kids, but the older people, that's kind of a problem. Because kids, we could fight with each other, and the next day you'd be together, no problem. Go play together or whatever, some could. And but one of the best things that ever happened to most of us in this neighborhood was a golf course, Columbus Golf Course over here off of Keller Spring in the country place. We always go to caddy over there at the golf course and make money. We was young kids growing up here in Carrollton. Some of the white and black kids would fight each other and couldn't play together. And we did have a white boy here who was pretty tough, they always called him Fred Cook, big boy. He always wanted to fight the black kids. He come down so far to attract those rocks at us and everything. But Mayberry was a kid in the community that would always try to keep harmony between everybody, black and everybody. Mayberry opened the door for us to have an opportunity to come to DeWitt Perry, to come in his gym and play basketball with the whites, and he'd get the black team to come up play them and the white gyms, and he caused that to have them work with us because when I was coming up, we would our basketball. When we first had started basketball, we would go down Our principal came in, new principal came in, a guy came in, said, we're going to start a basketball team. And so he went and found some some telephone poles side of the road and got some of the community to get their wagon, and they dragged them up to the school, colored school, and they cut them off and made holes and made basketball goals out of them. And so we had to play out on the ground and crack sometimes, ground cracking or whatever, and they take lime and, make the lines for us to stay in the court. And we played teams like Garland, Richardson, Irvin, all them teams. They'd come out, we go over, they had the same thing, played outside ball. So when Maryberry opened the opportunity for us to come up and play with them, that was a blessing to go inside a gym with air conditioning and all that stuff. That was something new to us. Maryberry, it was very good to us. And it was a young man from the Honeysuckle. He owned a lot of property out in Carrollton. His son was the same way, Brian Honeysuckle. They was all buddies, so they always try to open doors. It was a group of them that always know that thing wasn't right. They'd come in our community and play with us. Brian Honeysuckle, back in them days, he had a vet back in them days, car vet back in them days. So that's how much money he had, Mr. Honeysuckle. But they would come in the community, things wasn't right, play football with us, or get us to come up and play with them and stuff like that. So it was a group, and he led that group, him and Brian, Mayberry and them. So they were some good kids, good community. His parents was too, and as a group, the Parkers was friends of theirs too. They were some good kids too, and always opened doors for us. They felt things wasn't right. Sometimes we would go and caddy and come back down to the restaurant. We had to go in the back, and they went in the front. So time to go, they come to the little window and, y'all ready? And we come around the back and meet them, go play together. But they was a good kid. They know things wasn't right, so they always try to open doors for us. They try to give us things that, we didn't have. So it was, like I said, it was a good time and good people if you went through it. It seemed like an old-timey story, but it's real life. But like to say personal, I love Carrollton. I learned a lot in Carrollton. I went through things. And everything I went through today, I praise the Lord for it. I think I came at a great time. I got a chance to come through some of the kick-in, some of the slave-type time, go in the back. I've seen the opportunity in Carrollton. Go on water and get a colored fountain right in Carrollton. I got a chance to see all that. Now I can see fountains you can go where you want to go to. So I think I came at a great time to see a great life, part of all of it, From the back door to the front door. So, when you can do that, that's great, I think.